mistletoe cup? That was pretty good.
That was pretty funny last night. Can you give context to the audience as far as to what that was a reference to?
Under the mistletoe?
Yeah. Under the mistletoe cup.
Well, Pastor Dan had given a lady here on a Sunday morning a cup of coffee, and just grabbed one of our cups, and it's it said on it, "Meet me under the mistletoe" or something like that, and she kept asking him, "What are you trying to say something here?" So
no, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
And just to give people context, we actually have a bunch of mugs that we asked for people to give so that so we can reuse them.
Reuse them.
And it's always nice to have a mug, which is why I was saying, well, I'm missing
your mug.
It's actually sitting over there, but there's probably no water in it. It's all good.
Well, anyways. I had a very disappointing lunch, Ethan.
Why is that?
I had a smoothie.
Are we trying to do something here? No.
I just had a smoothie. And it was blueberry banana.
Okay.
Something was off, like what they mixed it with, like maybe like almond, I don't know, some weird kind of thing.
Did you go out and get it, or did you make it at home?
I didn't make it at home.
Oh, okay.
If I made it at home, it would have been amazing.
Well, of course.
Because it would have been
you would have known what you would have put.
A little ice cream and blueberries,
Well, there is, my understanding, there is leftover lasagna.
There is.
If that's your
that's my
your
jam.
bag.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. See what happens, Ethan.
Right.
All right. Well,
exactly.
We're back together.
We are.
Yeah.
The A-team is back together.
The A-team's back together. So we're going to hit a couple different things today just to kind of get Ruth, the book of Ruth, in its context.
Yeah.
And I want to be consistent with how we read Scripture.
Yep.
And I think we forget that at the time that this is being put into history, the story, and even after that, this is not a story that people knew.
Mm.
The Bible for us is a culture changing thing around globally. But when all these stories were happening and when they're being told around campfires and around kitchen tables or whatever, and then someone started writing these stories down, or many people started writing these stories down, no one knew these. These weren't stories that the Greeks knew or the Romans knew or the people like in China. Massive world events are happening in the world during this time. No one knows about this little group of people called the Israelites.
Okay.
They don't know who the Hebrews are. I mean, the Romans are, they're the ones that end up fighting them, but they're a throwaway band of nobodies worshiping a weird god. And, there's stuff going on with the Incas and the Mayans and, all this stuff happening in the world that no one knows about. So I think it's important for us to put our Bible in a context, not try to make it something that it's not.
Yeah.
So it's not an exhaustive history of the world. I think that's important that we want to make sure that we talk about. It's not a guide to the paleontology of creation. It's just not. That's not what it's intended to do.
Right.
And we've taken the Bible and we've inferred lots of things about it that hasn't been really helpful for society.
Yep.
Now some of it. Excuse me. And then on the flip side of that, it's not just a book of social reform. Because you can take that and go, well, this is all about social reform. This is all about justice. And obviously it's in there.
Yeah. And
God repeats that over and over and over again. But there's a lot more going on in Scripture. And I would argue that the overarching story of the Bible is redemption. God is trying to redeem God's people all over the place. And Ruth is a story of redemption because something's off. Something doesn't smell right in Ruth. Naomi and Ruth should not be alone. And we're going to walk that through. So somebody made some decisions that were not the right ones.
Right.
So God is trying to redeem, and Ruth is a beautiful story of redemption, even in the midst of pain and failure. Mm-hmm. Because I think when we think of redemption, everything's going to be amazing.
It's like this fairy tale.
Yeah, it's a fairy tale.
Yep.
No, there's still pain, there's still failure, even in the midst of redemption. And so that's where we are, especially with Ruth. So one of the things that is also important to note is that God doesn't set God's story outside of history. The story of God and God's people are in history. They're within human history. It's not set apart like some parallel track going on and this is happening over here and God's doing stuff over there. No, God is embedded into culture, into our world. And so we don't want to then pull these people out of their pre-modern world and make them be something that they're not.
Okay.
They're not American westernized Christians in 2025. They're not. And we have evolved in our thinking around gender roles and gender values and all those kinds of things. And to where some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is going to rub some people the wrong way because it should, because we're not them.
Right.
And they're not us. And so we want to make sure we put that in the context as well.
So that you can actually apply it then even to our life if we understand the cultural norms of what was going on, right?
And we're able then to take the beauty of the story and the truth of the story and adapt it to or learn from us to this in this our day and our time using our systems and our cultures and our own sensibilities of what gender roles should be in households. So we're going to go through a couple different things, and we're going to use some words that have a little. For some people, are going to have some baggage. So patriarchal. We're going to talk about that because that's the system that that's the system that Jesus was in, and that's a system that still a lot of people in the kind of the Eastern world kind of function in that way. And even some of our own conservative Christians, brothers and sisters, they live in a very patriarchal household.
Yeah.
Where the man is in charge and all the decisions, and then everybody else in the house just follows. I kind of grew up in that world.
Yeah, well, I did too.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, my dad would come home from work. He'd go he'd watch the news at 5 or whatever it was, and then he'd go sit at the dinner table and wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's weird that I do all the cooking in our household, and I do all kinds of these different kinds of duties. My wife and I have figured out, who's really good at this or who gets, whatever.
Yeah.
So our gender roles are very different. I mean, he would stand next to the fridge and he'd ask my mom in the kitchen, say, I need you to get me a glass of water. And I love him. But I remember coming home from college when that happened. I was like, dude, get your own water, man. Like, you're standing right there, But that's the way he was raised.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about patriarchal. We're also going to talk patrilinear and then patrilocal. And all of those three different systems helped people navigate their way in culture and in society in that time. So let's start off with
patriarchal.
Patriarchal. That whole thing consists of a series of groups of people who are led by the oldest male in the family, and you would trace your heritage, say, to the oldest male. And the oldest male would have all of the power. he would have his household was called Betab, Betab, and the B is more like a V. So Betab means father's house.
Okay.
And so he would be in charge of his house and whoever else was part of his house. And he had power to sell them into slavery. He had power to decide whether they live or die, and just a lot of power.
He was like the mafia.
He was like the mafia. And I mean, he's responsible for their care legally and economically.
Yeah.
Of his Bet Av. So we're gonna see where it goes well and where it breaks down.
Yeah.
So Abraham, it goes pretty well. And next week we'll talk a little bit more about Abraham. But for Abraham, it went pretty well in his Bet Av. He took care of people. He cared for them. He had a huge family, became very wealthy. They did have some family issues like everybody does. But as a patriarch, he did a pretty good job. Okay. The widows were cared for. The orphans were cared for. He connected a lot with immigrants and aliens in his midst because he was one. So he did pretty well. Now we're going to see one that doesn't go so well.
Okay.
And we're going to unpack the story of Judah and Tamar. Just saying, everybody, this is PG-13 for sure.
Okay. Well,
30 years ago, it would have been rated R.
Okay.
But this is PG-13 for sure. So just be careful. I'm not going to say anything weird, but if you read Genesis 38, I encourage you to read Genesis 38. So what's going on in Genesis 38? Well, Jacob has all these sons. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Jacob becomes Israel, and he has all these boys. 12. And they're too big to live in the father's house. So now they have their own Bet Avs. They have their own father's house. They have their own families. And we'll look at that a little bit too. And not everybody's living in Abraham's house. They have their own deal. Well, he has a son. Judah has a son named E-R. He marries a woman named Tamar. Tamar and get married. Dies. Now, the thing that's supposed to happen, which is really weird for us in today's world, what's supposed to happen is the next oldest boy of Judah is supposed to take Tamar on and care for her and then actually have kids with her so that she can have sons of her own. Then they'll have their own Bet Av. Like they have their own father's house.
Got it.
Where she will be taken care of. Mm-hmm. That's just the way the system was. Well, Onan is the second one in charge. So Onan is supposed to step forward and do his obligation, but he doesn't, and he dies as well. And now Tamar doesn't have any prospects because the next son in line is Shelah, and he's too young.
Okay.
So what Judah does, he breaks the Bet Av and he kicks Tamar out. And Tamar has to go back and live with her family, which is not supposed to happen. Judah is still supposed to take care of Tamar. But he has ultimate power. He can do what he wants. And then he promises Tamar, well, when my son gets old enough, I'll marry him to you. Well, he doesn't do it. He drags his feet. And what's going to happen is little Game of Thrones, Judah visiting what he thinks a temple prostitute. Okay, we don't have those at Prince of Peace, everybody. We're fine.
I hope not.
No, but it was a temple to another god. And so Judah's all over the place. Judah's out of control. And if we remember who Judah was the one that convinced his brothers to sell Joseph into slavery.
Okay, so he's a suspicious character.
But then at the end of the story, when Joseph doesn't tell the brothers who he is. He says, give me Benjamin to keep as a slave.
Yeah.
Judah says, no, take me. Mm-hmm. So there's redemption in even all that weird stuff. So, so he goes and has a relationship with what he thinks a prostitute, and it's not. It's Tamar.
Da, da, da.
Da, da, da. And so she ends up keeping his staff and like a cord off of his clothes or whatever.
Okay.
She got some items. 3 months go by, and the town realizes Tamar's pregnant. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Not supposed to happen, right? Immaculate conception, whatever.
Right.
But
or Judah.
Judah's got. So then he goes right away. He goes, burn her. He's going to kill Tamar because Tamar has messed it up.
Right.
And so then Tamar, though, appeals to her family and to the crowd of the people and says, well, look, I have Judah's staff and I have his cord off of his clothing.
Oh, yep.
How did I get that? How did I get close enough to Judah? Dun, dun, dun. Everything's out in the open. And then Judah ends up doing the right thing. But see, when the patriarchal system breaks down because of selfishness, because of fear even, because someone just made a bad decision, typically the people that are most affected by that are women, orphans, and immigrants. Mm. And that's why over and over and over and over again in Scripture, God says, I want you to take care of the widows, the orphans, and the immigrants in your midst, because the patriarchal system is going to break down at some point in time, and you need to help fix it. So it was what they had in their day and their time, but next week we're going to see how God is starting to twist that whole thing around and changes that a little bit too. So, the patriarchal succession will then go down to like when Jacob dies, it would have went to Reuben,
okay,
who was the oldest.
Yep.
And Reuben's the one that ran back home to tell his dad, and then came back to free Joseph, and Joseph was gone.
Oh,
because they sold him off to slavery.
Yeah.
So Reuben was trying to do the right thing, but he
Right.
didn't do it when it counted.
Right.
When he was with his brothers. Older brother should have said, no. Yeah, he's a pain. Yeah, he's annoying. Yeah, our dad loves him more than any of us, but we're not going to do this,
Right.
But he couldn't do that. But I think remember, God is working in the culture. Your bet app splits when it becomes too big. So Abraham and Lot, they split.
That's right.
That's because the Bet Av is too big, and they can't live on one piece of land anymore. They have to have multiple pieces of land. So that's the patriarchal system, a mile high view of that. So let's talk about patrilinear. This is genealogy. You would trace your genealogy back to whatever patriarch. This is like third cousins, second nieces, an uncle twice removed, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that's another way you would trace yourself back to the patriarch was, am I in the genealogy? Mm. Next week, we're going to go crazy with genealogies.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because God is doing something in these genealogies, and we just simply don't see it because we're not looking for it.
Right.
We're not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
But read the first chapter of Matthew, and then read the genealogy that's in chapter 3 of Luke. You're going to see some interesting things because they're not the same.
Mm. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. We should probably stop doing that. I like it though.
Yeah.
What? Wait a second. What are you saying? This is the genealogy of Jesus,
right?
And you've got different people in there.
Huh?
What is going on? Like, I thought the Bible was infallible, right? There's no mistakes.
That's what we were told.
Yeah, we were told. Anyway, that was snarky. But we're going to get to that a little bit later. And then patrilocal, which I find to be probably the most beautiful thing out of all this, because Jesus is going to do something pretty fantastic with it. This is all about living space. This is who you lived with. And a lot of houses back then were called 4-pillar houses. And there were lots of different rooms and courtyards and all that kind of stuff. And, all the oldest males, all the males would be descendant from the patriarch, would be there with their wives. The daughters would go and be part of somebody else's bet av.
Whoever they married.
Whoever they married, yep. And the whole household would live together. And what would also happen is that a son and a father would go out, and they would find a bride, probably a little bit arranged kind of thing, and then would say, "Yep, I'll be back. I got to go do some work. I'll be back." After the bride was picked. So what he would do is he would go to his father's house, and he would build a room off the house.
Oh, okay.
And so then he would bring his wife to the house. And the father would have to sign off on it and go, "Okay, that's good." Or, "Nah, you're going to have to fix that drywall," or, whatever, plumb a little bit different here, whatever it is. And then the groom would go back, get married, and then bring the bride to the father's house.
Got it.
So this was really an economic thing. It was a defensive thing. You could protect your family if you're all together.
Yeah.
And it was something that provided safety. The interesting thing is that none of these things happened for Ruth and Naomi. None of them. The whole system broke down on them. But we're going to get to that in a minute. I want to go back to the father's house thing.
Okay. I
think it is overlooked, and we should dwell on it a little bit. In John 14, 1-3, Jesus says, "Do not be afraid. Do not be worried. I'm going to go to the Father's house, and I'm going to come back for you. And you're going to live with me in my Father's house." A lot of us think of eternal life or whatever, pearly gates, God's somewhere else. They're walking on clouds or, whatever.
In heaven as a
place.
As a place.
What Jesus is saying is that it's going to be even better than that, guys. You're going to come live with me and my dad. You're now going to be part of my bet av. And there's no patriarchal connection. He's telling his disciples, they're not relatives. There's no patrilineal connection. There's no genealogies where Peter and Jesus find themselves in the same genealogy. And they're not patrilocal. They don't live with Jesus. They live with their own bet avs. And Jesus is saying, no, you're going to come live with me. You're going to come live with me in my Father's house. There's many rooms. I'm preparing a place for you. It's the same thing. You are my bride, the world. I'm coming back for you. I'm preparing a place for you. My dad's got to sign off on it, and once he signs off on it, I'm coming back for you. And that's an image that's throughout Scripture, is Jesus as the groom, the world, the people as the bride. Keep that oil in your lamps, because if you don't have oil in your lamps, you don't know when the groom's going to come back.
Right.
But it's that intimate of a relationship. Jesus says it's not just we're hanging out somewhere. No, you're going to come live in my house. You're going to be in my bet av. And not only that, but the whole world is going to be in my bet. So it's a story of redemption. How do you get everybody to be in one bet av? I can't even get my family to be in one house, right?
Right.
How do you get the whole world to be in God's bet av, right? Redemption. That's the only way it's ever going to come.
where people are working together, people are caring for one another.
Yep. So being in a Bet Av, I think it's beautiful. But we're going to get to the pain and failure in Ruth, because there's a lot of pain and failure. There's a patriarchal failure. Naomi and her husband Elimelech have to leave with their 2 sons. There's some theories about Elimelech. Okay. One theory is that he was down on his luck. He couldn't make ends meet. There was a famine. There's a breakdown in the family, and there's no patriarch to care for Elimelech and Naomi, and they end up going to Moab to find food. Problem is that to find food, you would never go to Moab. You would go to Egypt, because that was a breadbasket of the world. That's where everybody went when there was a famine. But he goes to Moab. So there are other scholars that think, well, Elimelech was actually quite rich, wealthy, and he leaves to go to Moab to save his wealth for himself, because if the land has a famine, people like Elimelech are going to be asked to step up and give their stuff, and he doesn't want to do it.
Well, and then their animals die and all that other stuff.
So who knows?
Right.
Something's broken, though. Like, God's still in the story, but something's broken. There's something broken in the patriarchal system that would then, even when Naomi and Ruth come back, that Naomi and Ruth aren't taken care of until
Boaz.
Boaz, the coolest name on the planet.
Yes.
I want to change my name to Boaz.
Well, hey.
Boaz Dean.
Boaz Dean.
Boaz Dean. Don't say that too fast. But Boaz does what the next of kin should have done. So everybody knows Ruth and Naomi are back, or Naomi's back. She brought back this Moabite girl,
right?
Her daughter-in-law, and everybody knows they're back. Even Boaz goes, "Oh, I've heard about what you've been doing to Ruth. Like, I've heard about what you're doing for your mother-in-law." Some patriarch has dropped the ball.
Yep.
Somebody should be picking up the slack and taking care of Ruth and Naomi, and they're not doing it. And Boaz goes to them, to the next of kin, and says, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not doing your job. You're not doing your duty. You got to take Ruth and Naomi on." And the next of kin says, he goes, "I can't do it because it'll mess with my inheritance." Right? You know what I mean? He's thinking about himself.
Yep.
And his own stuff. And so he doesn't do it. And Boaz goes, "Okay, well, if no one's going to do it, I will." And this is kind of a weird deal. We're going to put this in the show podcast, because we want people to research this.
Yeah.
And see if they get back to us. You know how they finished their deals? It wasn't a handshake.
Is it a blood?
No.
No.
They take the shoe off, hand him the sandal.
Okay.
It's like, "This is how I signed the contract. Here's my sandal." Okay, anybody want to do a cultural reference dive to see why they use a sandal? Write the email that's going to be in the bottom of the deal.
communications@popmn.org. Please
do some research. There's some couple different ideas out there, so send you on a little.
I bet Keith could probably bring us some research.
I think so. So that's something went haywire with a patriarchal system. Something also went haywire with the patrilinear, because there isn't a genealogy.
Okay.
We don't know where Elimelech came from. I mean, we can kind of judge that he's an Ephraimite from Ephraim, but no one knows for sure. That's a pretty good guess, though. And then no one knows where Boaz fits in all the mix. And the guy that's supposed to be the one that's taking up the slack, they don't even have his name. They just call him the next of kin. So there's no patrilinear thing happening. And then there's no patrilocal. Naomi's not living in the patriarch's house. So everything's all mixed up. We don't have any of that. But what happens with the book of Ruth is that a whole new thing begins. A whole new thing starts. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to pick up next week. A whole new genealogy is going to start. A new patriarch is going to emerge. And the house gets much bigger than anybody ever imagined that it would. And that'll wrap up Ruth next week.
So do you have any idea as far as timing? Because I remember Ruth has an interaction with Boaz. Has this happened before he goes to who should be taking care of him?
Yeah, that's after he has that interaction.
Okay.
Yeah, and little flirty.
Jill and I kind of got into it. It was a little spicy.
Uncovered the legs. They have lots of ways of saying things that they don't say.
Yes.
She had to uncover the legs of Boaz.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly. So.
Yeah, this is it before, because then he says, "I'm taking Ruth to be my wife, and I'm taking care of Naomi, and this is how it's going to be. My sandal is proof." So he redeems them. So.
Right.
But everything starts all over again next week, or starts again with probably the best known patriarch in the Jewish world, and even bigger than Abraham. Not the biggest prophet. I think people would say Moses was the biggest prophet, but in terms of patriarchal stuff, this one coming up is pretty big. If dun dun dun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been really insightful, going into the patrilinear and
patrilocal
and patriarchal, all that stuff. But if you guys have any questions or comments, especially when it comes to this sort of stuff, please feel free to write us at communications@popmn.org. You can also find the podcast and other resources on our resource download page as well. Again, Paul, thanks for spending your time with us and filling in, and we'll be here next week.
Next week we got another one
to kind of wrap up the book of Ruth.
And then next week the wrap up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.